storytelling is, I suppose some could consider it a calling, couldn't they? And writing is certainly a craft. And it was Doctor Who's Robert Holmes that once said that if there's one series that finds out, that tests a writer's worth, then it has to be, then it's definitely Doctor Who. Several couldn't cut it, and few came back time after time after time. But our guest today, one of our guests, is one of them. Throughout the golden period of the 70s, across 2 Doctors and several production teams, Bob Baker wrote and co-wrote 9 full multi-part serials, many of them some of the most iconic that were ever screened, and co-creating K9 himself with longtime friend and writing partner Dave Martin. He also pitted the Time Lords against Axons, Mandrels, 2 Eldrads. He sent 1 companion away from the TARDIS completely and was the very first writer to bring several incarnations of the Doctor together on screen, if you remember. But for the purposes of this show, of course, he created K9 for 1977's The Invisible Enemy. It's just one highlight of a long and distinguished career, for Bob Baker. I'm delighted to welcome Bob Baker to Type 40 this afternoon. Hello, Bob.
Hey!
Hello there.
There he is.
Great to have you here, Bob. What do you think of all these K9s? What do you think of our Kennel Club here?
Well, oh,
there he is. He's just picking up out there.
It's me.
there he is.
Yes. And we've also got the executive producer of all things K9 with a considerable history with Doctor Who himself. Paul Tams is here, also with companions. First of all, Paul, Bob, happy birthday, belated birthday to K9, 43 years old.
Yeah, it's almost as old as myself.
Where has the time gone? We've got so much to talk about, Paul, but I must ask you about who you've got behind you there. Who's that?
Okay, I'm not going to try and attempt to point. Oh, okay. that one.
Yes.
This one here is the actual prop that was used in the Australian K9 series that Bob and I did in 2009. It was broadcast from 2010. And this is a presentation model that made for us by Richard Ashton, which we've used at trade shows at Olympia and other business events, showing the new look for the upgrade of K9 for the project that we have on the way.
Really impressive. That one, I mean, that's blinged up. That is a blinged up K9, isn't it? Right.
Absolutely spectacular. We've got people saying hello and welcoming you all to the stream here, and happy birthday, K9. There's lots and lots of that. And hello, Bob there from our friend probably being. Laurie says hello to. People are really happy to see you all here. K9s as well. Absolutely love the scene in School Reunion where the 10th Doctor sees K9 again. Brings a smile to my face. We're going to have lots and lots of memories a little later on. Just like that, no doubt. Oh, Bob can't hear us, Bob.
Can you hear us, Bob?
Give him a moment.
No, I can't.
Could be a lot of noise coming through. Yes, we have a lot to talk about. But Paul, when you take your K9s, obviously you take them to corporate events and things like that, don't you? What's the reception? Is the sight of K9, any K9, enough to reduce a grown man to a quivering wreck with a big smile on his face?
Well, a grown man and grown woman.
Or woman, yeah. I'm glad you got there before I did.
Definitely. I mean, we've had a great response. I mean, we did a show where we had a whole gang of kids, and we had the original K9, like the one JT's got, and we had these 2 K9s on a long table, and they all flocked for these 2 because it's something that they can relate to as something new. You know, with the original K9 that Tony Harding designed for Doctor Who, that's iconic, and there's a lot of people that say, oh, you can't change it, you can't do this and you can't do that. But in modern day TV with the techniques and everything that's being used nowadays, we have to consider what you're putting on the screen. With the old K9, he used to trundle around after Tom Baker on the floor. That used to cause a lot of problems in the studio, and also a lot of problems with, for the directors, because the actors would also have to get on their knees all the time to talk to him, or they'd have to shoot. And remember, in the old days of Television Centre, they used these very large cameras, which were all on high mounts. They didn't have the luxury of modern day TV, where you use one camera like a movie shoot, and actually be able to manipulate it to angles to actually use it all the time. So one of the things when we did the Australian series, with having a bunch of young actors, basically the kids in the show, we had to have something that was proportionate to them, so they could be all on the screen together, and with him hovering as well. The original size prop, everyone thinks, oh, it's a small, cute dog. It's actually quite a large prop.
It does look big.
Because of all the mechanics that went in and everything. And so you couldn't basically have that floating in the air. And Bob will take up the story that when he and Dave created K9 and they wrote the original script for Invisible Enemy, they actually wrote in that K9 hovered everywhere.
Oh, really? I had no idea about that, Bob.
So basically, we went back to Bob and Dave's original vision of K9. This one.
Can you hear us now? Can you hear us now, Bob?
I can't understand what people are saying.
I don't think he can quite make out what we're saying. But yes, while you've just brought him up there, Paul, let's just take a moment to remember here, Dave Martin, who passed away in 2007. But of course, he was your close friend and writing partner, Bob. And we just want to take a quick moment to thank Dave too, and remember his huge contribution, co-writing all those stories with you, and conceiving this wonderful creation, Bob. It's thank you both. The idea, Bob, of K9, was it born of necessity or inspiration, or a bit of both? What do you think it was? What do you think you put it down to yourself and Dave? Has he frozen?
I can't hear anything.
Oh dear.
Is the volume up?
Can't quite hear us. Give
What?
it a moment.
Hello?
Thank you. Can you hear us now, Bob?
It's just like normal for everybody, isn't it? This now we're all living on these Zoom chats. And,
Problem being, says one day people will be able to have a real K9, which JT has.
Maybe he needs to hide the volume up on his iPad.
Happy birthday to our favourite robotic dog K9 there from Daniel Leach in the chat. There. Yes, sir.
Bob seems to have frozen, bless him.
We have a picture. We have a picture here of you, Bob, there with Dave, with your writing partner,
Bristol
Dave.
boys.
The Bristol boys. If you had a penny for every time somebody says that to you at a convention or whatever else, like the Bristol boys gets bandied around a lot, I bet, doesn't it, Paul?
It does with Bob and Dave, and it's an affectionate term that I believe Terence Dix and Barry Letts especially came up with for them in the early days. They were his Bristol boys, you know. Oh, Bob's dropped out.
He's connecting again. I think he is still with us, but I think he's having some connection problems.
He needs a K9 at his end to sort this out, doesn't he?
His daughter is on standby, and yes, let's talk a little bit about the Invisible Enemy, because I don't know about you guys. I vividly remember this story being broadcast and seeing K9 for the first time in October of 1977. This was episode 2, wasn't it, Simon? Do you want to?
Yeah, episode 2. I was 9 years old at the time, and it was just the thing is that you've got to remember with this. It was so unexpected. Again, these are in the days really before there was much publicity. I maybe had seen something about K9 coming in the Radio Times, but there wasn't. I don't think there was really any pre-publicity at all about this. So suddenly this robot dog just sort of trundles into view, and so it was just so unexpected. It was just so. Let's be honest, K9 is very un-Doctor Who in many ways because it looks so very, very impressive. You kind of think, why did they ever think of bringing K9 in just for one story alone? The amount of money and work and time and effort that went into that one prop was so major. And at the time, I think it was still only intended in pre-production that it would be a one-off. So you got to try and think back to those days when it was just so impressive just to suddenly see this really, really fantastic robot dog sort of trundling without any expectations whatsoever. And of course, from word go, he just commands the screen. He commands your attention straight away. It was a big moment for a kid of my age. That was.
I don't know how you think about all this, Paul, but an idea like that. So simple, it's brilliant. People working in entertainment, they try, don't they? Search for years for an idea like that, inspiration like that.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you think that Bob and Dave wrote the character just for the one show, and then the producer at the time, Graham Williams, took a punt on it and actually kept it in the show for 3 years now. After that, so and he took a real chance with it, and it worked. So sometimes you take a chance in a show like Doctor Who and it doesn't work, but in this case, it certainly did. No matter what anyone feels about the character, in between good writing from Bob and Dave, and I'll say this right across the board that some of the writing wasn't as good as theirs. For the character, and we discovered it, and we've discovered it since, that other writers can't get a grip that he's one of the stars of the show, and in his own show he was the star of the show, so therefore you had to write specifically for that character as a leading man, which obviously Bob knows him inside out, so he can do that, but with that combined with John Leeson's, I think, totally superlative voice that really stands alone. It's as iconic as the Dalek voice. That when you hear that voice, you instantly feel warm inside and think, "Yes, that's K9." Which, bless him, that's why David Brearley's voice just didn't quite cut it as much as John's did, and that's probably one of the best decisions John Nathan Turner made of bringing John Leeson back for his final hurrah, so to speak.
Putting the artist into voice artist, I think a lot of people would say, because yes, there's David Brearley there, it's at the bottom left, and there's Roy Skelton at the top, who did voice K9 once, but to everybody really, John Leeson and K9 are so linked. His very particular take on the character, so idiosyncratic, so full of character, so lovable. It's pitch perfect, isn't it, JT?
Oh, absolutely. And, I think that must be one of the reasons why, John does very, very well with fans, because everybody recognises John. And it's unusual to be recognised for a voice.
Yes.
That's great. That's one of the brilliant things about Doctor Who. John's known, he's seen, and people know he's K9.
They do indeed. I mean, is this why when you came to create his solo series, Paul and Bob, was there never any question of you going back to John Leeson?
Well, everyone knows it was a bumpy ride in Brisbane to actually get the show off and running, and thanks to a fantastic crew that we had there in art department, we actually did manage to get it up and running. We clashed with some of the Australian writers and producers that had ideas of what they wanted for K9. We put our foot down and said there's only one voice of K9. They were going to talk to Andy Serkis. They wanted Jason Donovan at one point.
Really?
Then Then Robbie Williams at another point was contacted.
Who was that? Sorry, Paul.
Robbie Williams.
Really?
Oh no!
Really? Really?
And we just kept saying no, you can't do this. It's K9. It's John Leeson, and John Leeson is K9. It's in the DNA of K9. So therefore, you have to keep it that way. So,
Have we got Bob yet? Can we hear Bob yet? Can you hear us, Bob?
Bob?
No, he's gone again. It's
peering into Omega's black hole, buddy.
Yeah.
You're right about the voice, because when David Brealey turned up doing the voice again, it was very unexpected for me as a viewer. I didn't know. There was no pre-publicity that there was going to be a new voice, that it wasn't going to be John Leeson. So I didn't know who John Leeson was as a 10-year-old, but I knew what K9's voice was, and it didn't sound like David Brealey. And so it was really disappointing that when David Brealey came along.
No, I can't hear you. Sorry.
Oh, have we got Bob?
We can hear you, Bob. Can you hear us?
No.
Sometimes the sound can lag, can't it, on these things?
Everything is broken up. The whole speech broken up.
All
I think he
the
might have a
speech
problem with his connection. I think that's possibly the
Yeah.
problem.
could be.
He's doing a bit of a Norman Collier, isn't he?
You mentioned the designer earlier on, Tony Harding. So yeah, let's take a look at that. It's the original sketch and a picture of Tony Harding there in the bottom right.
Oh yes.
Cute from day one.
Yeah.
And that's from issue 17 of Doctor Who Weekly.
Yeah, it is, and that's when obviously that, as you can see, that they printed the blueprints. And again, as a 10-year-old for me, that was just so exciting. I mean, I couldn't build my own K9, but somehow to see the blueprints there, it made it tangible. I always I mean, look at that. It's magnificent, isn't it? The design is superlative. It's as good as the Dalek design by Ray Cusick. It's up there as an absolute classic design.
Yeah.
Obviously, as Paul said, it's of its time, and you can imagine this trundling around, bumping into cameras and whatever else. But it's a design. It's like the Alexander Isigonis Mini, isn't it? It's a design classic, I think. Paul.
It is a design classic, yeah.
I'll tell you something, Dan. Those blueprints in Doctor Who Weekly, those ones you've just shown there, was the catalyst for me realizing you could actually build a K9. And my poor grandfather had to have this magazine thrust at him because he was a joiner, amongst many others. And this Doctor Who Weekly was thrown at him continually. And he actually started to make the body for me. I was so excited. It was out of wood. And then what happened then is I think they all expected me to get over it and move on and forget. And I have to say to you, I never did.
You got one eventually.
Yeah. 20 years later.
Let's take a look in the chat here. We have that is awesome. Great blueprints. Fun. K9 was the hero in Series 1 finale of Sarah Jane Adventures. If it wasn't for K9, all the characters would be dead. Yes, he saved the day so many times. Seems like he was the voice of computers on Blake 7. No, that's not right, Lonnie. That was a guy called Peter Tuddenham. But I think Aurak was slightly based on K9. I don't know what
I think so, yeah.
Which is not quite as good.
The attitude and the sass. I mean,
I've had this conversation many times with fellow Doctor Who fans about, I reckon that one Monday night, Terry Nation, or one Saturday night, Terry Nation tuned into Doctor Who and went, I want one of them.
We've got a nice comment here from Lonnie Webb. One day I turned the channel and this curly-haired man was struck by lightning from his pinball machine. That was my first exposure, and I was hooked. Then K9 rolled it.
What episode is he talking about?
I have no idea at all. I think some could have been had a drop or two.
He saw it happen.
May have passed on his lips there, but yes, whatever works for you. Yes, and of course, Paul, you went back to that original design, didn't you, to launch your series in Australia in 2000, in 2012, 2010.
From our first episode, which we entitled Regeneration, and we had that built in Australia, that actual prop, and I think we've got a photo me operating the head. So when the head moved, it was actually me pulling it up and down from the side.
That's a particularly fine prop, Paul. Where is that prop now? Does that one still exist?
That's now in a museum. There we are. That's on set. That's that's now in a museum. It's in here in the UK. I think it's in Kent somewhere or somewhere like that. I'm not quite sure where it is.
That's absolutely magnificent.
It's in a high TV museum somewhere. Because it's actually a screen-used canine prop, so it's you know, it has that provenance, as they say, on the Antique Roadshow. But no, what I did was I kept the silhouette of K9, because one of the problems we had when we were doing the Australian series with Disney is that they had their own ideas. They wanted to turn him into a walking character. At which we said, well, no, K9 doesn't walk, K9 hobbles, and he doesn't need real legs. So what I did, I deconstructed the leg area. So you had the two legs with the light up hover pads underneath them. But I kept the silhouette. So if you look at it sideways, it's got the head, the rubber neck, the dog collar, and it's got the same shape as the original version, with the thin metallic tail that comes off the back, as does the new one. And I've always been an admirer of a Japanese designer called Robert Kinoshita, who was the designer of Robbie the Robot in Forbidden Planet, and he also designed the robot in Lost in Space. And what I've done with the new one is that I've not looked at those, but I've visually thought of the elements of how would this guy approach this, and that's why I put some sort of like deco feel into it. And when you think something like Robbie the Robot, it's iconic. It's nearly 70 years old, and as a TV robot, like the female character from the film Metropolis, which obviously predates that to the 1920s. It's such an iconic looking sculpt that I wanted to inject that sort of feel into it, which they obviously had done with the Cybermen. I think when Doctor Who came back in 2005, and they've subsequently done that sort of thing since. Otherwise, you end up with something that looks like Iron Man, which
nobody wants that.
Did you find, Paul, that Disney just didn't quite get K9? Did they not? Did they even know what K9 was in Disney?
Yeah, they knew what K9 was, which is why they came on board as the first broadcaster. They injected the least finance into the series, and we had Channel 10 in Australia, and we were at a meeting at the BBC about, I think, 2 years ago, and one of the ladies around the table remarked to me that, oh, and of course, K9, that series that you made, it was only ever shown on Disney XD. And I rattled off, no, it's the first of its kind. There's been no other Doctor Who show or Doctor Who show related that's been shown on Japanese television or Russian state television, Turkish ATV. It was shown in Czechoslovakia. It was shown in all the former Yugoslavian countries like Macedonia, and right across on Cartoon Network, to cover all of the Pacific area, Australia, New Zealand, and up to obviously all the islands up to Japan as well. And also we were shown on Syfy channel in the USA. We were on BBC Kids alongside Sarah Jane Adventures every Thursday evening in Canada. So
it really did have a big international reach then, Paul. We've got a message here from M in the chat. It says, Paul did a great job of making the new one look modern, but still keeping the feel of K9 close to the old one. You worked extensively on redesigning this, didn't you, with a guy called Alex Kubalski?
Well,
I think we have
Kubalski. I've never met him.
Oh, okay.
He's an Australian chap who he's a toy designer for Transformers, and he lives in Tokyo. Okay. And he was at college with one of the the chaps at Disney XD, and he got him in to do some designs, and he came up with some designs that looked more like a panther on legs. That when he transformed the legs back into the body, it looked like a Honda motorbike. But he'd come up with the ear shape and the color scheme. So basically, to keep things sweet, I just used the color scheme and the ears, which I regret the ears being too big, and I've always said that. But that was just to keep the momentum going with them. That they had injected something because they paid the guy some money to come up with some designs. So therefore, I agreed to let him share a credit on the end credits for that.
Let's talk a little bit about the design, because it is something that gets talked about quite a lot, isn't it? Bob Baker here, he owns the character rights to K9, doesn't he? But the character's design is owned by the BBC.
Yeah, they own what's known as the intellectual property rights, like obviously Terra Nation's estate owns the intellectual property rights to the Daleks. All the BBC own is the image rights they co-own the image rights between Bob, Dave, and the BBC to as JT was pointing to, the original design. So the BBC only own, if you think about it, 25% of K9, because they own 50% of the design rights to that version of K9, whereas Bob owns 100% of the IP of the character with Dave's estate. His widow Celia, who's a lovely lady who we deal with, and that's so therefore we're in our rights to do what we like with the character.
Of course.
Yeah.
To jump at the chance, sorry, to reimagine the basic concept and present it to a successive generation without, as a sidewards thing. It doesn't harm the original in any way.
I don't think it does. You've got the purists who say, "Oh no, that's not my K9," or "It's not."
Which is fair enough.
It can live alongside your K9. Your children, your grandchildren, your great grandchildren will like it, and it's he's organic. He can change. The Doctor can change, and we've made our K9 change.
The other thing about it is, to be honest, with the story content you did in the updated series in 2010, I can't really see this flying around futuristic cities and doing all the stuff it had to do. Because as you say, Paul, K9 is the lead. Bob has made him the lead character in the show, quite rightly. And some of the stuff he had to do, this big, beautiful thing here wouldn't necessarily be able to do it, could it?
No, like I said, it's just the logistics, production-wise, and also, you've all heard the stories about K9 breaking down on set or being pulled along by fishing wire or whatever else have you. Therefore, we circumnavigated by that because we had him on a gimbal and green screened out the gimbal, which was a device that basically he was, and I hated the term at the time, puppeteered on, because you'd have a director say, "Okay, bring on that puppet." It's not a puppet.
It's definitely not a puppet. This is high technology. There's K9 getting ready for action.
The first time that anywhere that's been seen in public, that photo, that's the gimbal. So the operator would stand far back behind the wheel. That was before it was painted green, actually, and Grant, who molded and made the character, made the gimbal over there as well. So it was like fully operational.
That's a fantastic photo. That is, as you say, if that's the first time it's been seen, that's a brilliant photo to see, because you can immediately say, okay, now I get how you did it. I can see the logistics of how that worked.
There wasn't a Matthew Corbett.
He's real.
There's no hand on the backside.
The thing, there's no little man anywhere in the equation apart from a few feet away holding whatever else in the original show. But how does it feel, if we can try and get Bob again, how does it feel, Bob, to finally see K9 fly after all those years?
Oh,
It's not quite.
Oh
No,
no,
not
still
got it,
having
have we?
trouble.
It's not working, is it?
It's going to be one of those. This is live TV, folks. It's going to be one of those. Are you with us yet, Bob? Have we got Bob?
From a technical point of view, Paul, to be able to achieve all these things and to bring Bob's vision to life like that.
Words are all broken up.
Oh, we're all broken up, he says.
Yeah, we get the occasional.
Oh, we are sorry, Bob.
I think it's his connection.
I think it is the connection.
Just bear with me a minute. I'll give him a quick call.
We love you, Bob. We want you here with us.
We do.
From an adult's point of view, looking at Dan, it's great, isn't it? 'Cause as I said before, when you actually see K9 now in the updated version, and you can see him hover, it does fit in an awful lot because you can look at something like that, and then you can go back to the old. Is he there?
Oh, you can hear now.
I can't hear the words. They're all broken.
Oh,
It's his connection.
he's hearing us stuttering. It must be his connection.
Yeah.
Bob, are you on the iPad or the laptop?
Misconnected.
Are you on the laptop?
It's like Swap Shop, isn't it? Checkers, where are you, love? Woo!
Affirmative.
Look at that. Those happy days.
No,
We have.
we've got
we
it.
have a few
We've got
messages
Bob.
here. We love you, Bob. There's a lot of
We do
affection
love you,
being
Bob.
poured out to Bob.
Just smile.
Seriously, can't hear you. There we are.
Can you type a message at the bottom of the screen too, Bob? That's all.
Yes, for anybody who
geez,
hasn't
Robert.
caught it, this is he's there quoting from some of his other work. There, of course, Bob was the writer of most of the Wallace and Gromit material, wasn't he? Including the amazing film The Curse of the Were-Rabbit.
Oh yeah.
Just another line, an amazing career.
That was my childhood.
What? Outrageous.
Well, of course.
I think it's not the one child,
Yeah.
it's the other one. It's 25 years old this year.
I know how Bob feels. Technology can be a pain, says Vanessa. Good to see you, Vanessa. Glad you could be here. Let's take a look at K9 the series here and where all this came in. Here's a lovely big picture there of K9 flying with a bit of computer trickery this time. This was the 2009 to 2010 series. K9, a spin-off starring our very favourite robot dog who falls through space-time and ends up in the company of Professor Alistair Griffin in his laboratory cum mansion in 21st century London. Paul, the original K9, he sacrificed himself, doesn't he, very bravely to fight off some really sort of lumpy-looking monsters. And what survives is a regeneration circuit which reconstitutes and births this whole new K9. As you said, this ran for, was it 26 episodes, Paul?
Yeah, 26 half-hour episodes, and that's the regeneration circuit there.
Oh, wow. Is that the actual prop?
Yeah.
Actual one.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I was watching it the other day.
It's got some writing on it, which I think.
Yeah, we can see.
Yeah.
Let's get that a bit bigger. Where are we? Let's get that a bit. There's some Gallifreyan for you there, isn't it?
I was going to say that's.
Well, if you go that way,
Yeah, you can see it. Yeah.
Nicely done.
it's the number 8, of course, and this writing here appears in the making of Doctor Who.
I was going to say, is that from the making of Doctor Who? I knew it looked familiar.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So there's lots of little Easter eggs in the show that no one actually spotted because the camera wasn't.
Yeah, but it's nice
Go back
knowing
to-
they're there.
No.
It proves that it's being made by the right people, and that's what we all care about.
You've got a long history with Doctor Who as well, haven't you, Paul? So where did you come in with K9, and how did this all start for you? Where did you meet Bob?
Well, to answer meeting Bob, I mean, the thing is, when I was a teenager, I moved to London in, as John Nathan Turner used to say, 1900 and frozen to death. And I started work at the BBC, and they were making Nightmare of Eden. So I went down on the set of that, and I went on the set of a few other shows that were being made there as well. And I was working in the animation department, which was rostrum cameras. So I was doing things like Blue Peter and all sorts of things like title sequences and things. And I'm working my way up doing that. And so, but even though I was on the set of Nightmare, I never met Bob. And I also got to meet Pamela Salem and her late husband, Michael O'Hagan, who were like virtually my neighbours in Earl's Court, in a place called Nivern Square. They used to live at the time. I'd actually helped him rescue his dog that had fallen down a basement flat. And he was pushing the dog up, and I arrested him one night and went around for a drink. And there I was meeting this great actress who had been in Doctor Who that I remember.
Wow.
And I managed to, off a fan friend, get a copy of, an illegal copy, obviously, of Robots of Death at the time and passed it on to her. She hadn't seen it since it had gone out. So
Wow.
that was about 1980, I think it was.
That's a claim to fame.
And that was quite something to get something like that back in the day.
Yeah, it was.
And so, and Bob used to, the reason I mentioned that is because Bob used to stay there whenever he came up to London on business. He used to stay with Pamela and her husband. And so I never met him then either. And when I was working in music and doing lots of pop videos and designing loads of record covers and things like that, I worked for this sound engineer who Bob had cast as a child actor in one of his TV shows for HTV, and that was another connection. And that's King of the Castle. And then when the hiatus hit in the 90s, I contacted Bob just out of the blue. I got his number via a friend, and I'd been seeing all these fan-produced dramas that were going direct to DVD. It wasn't even DVD; it was VHS.
Then it was all stuff that Bill Baggs was making on the BBV.
The Bill Baggs stuff, and then there was this dreadful thing that was filmed on the HMS Belfast with these sort of
shakedown.
Oh yes, which I heard that all was not well with that one, but it was very badly directed. So I just thought, oh, surely you can do better than this. So I thought I'll have a go myself and let's do a K9. I contacted Bob, and Bob turned around to me and said, forget doing something for the video market. Let's make a TV show. Let's make a series. So it was Bob's idea, really, to make a series. Whereas I just thought, oh, we'll head down that route that everyone seems to be going. And I came up with lots of initial designs then. And then we just the ball rolled, and we went from one set of finance partners to another, and until we ended up being inherited by Disney XD. Because we were originally with Disney Buena Vista in about 2000. Then we got out of the deal with them, and then we went to Jetix, who were owned by Fox Kids.
I remember them well.
We were in development with them, and we were about to do a full series, and then Fox decided to close Jetix down and sell it to Disney. So it's like, oh, we're back full circle to where we were before. And that's how we ended up with Disney XD. And we were just about to go into production, and they changed all their staff. So we had to wait another 18 months. And then we got our financial partners at the time set us up with someone else, another company. And that's when we flew down to Brisbane, I think about the March or April of 2008. And then we started pre-production in about the October. And we started shooting in the December. And we also had a Canadian company involved. And right at the last minute, on the second day of shooting the series, we found that the Canadian company weren't coming in. The guy had actually gone into
Really?
So we were left with this big gap in the finance. So we basically had to tighten our belts. Had to really tighten our belts. And as one of the producers down there said, smoke and mirrors. We have to use smoke and mirrors. But we pulled it off, and it played constantly for 5 years in Canada, and it played constantly, I think 4 years consecutively. Channel 10 showed it on Saturday mornings, and it got bigger viewership every year as it built up. That's me with the cast. We had a great cast. I mean, they have had some knocking with for their English accents. One or two.
I thought they were delightful. I really did.
Well, I'll talk you through them. The chap on the end, the young one, he's I think he's in Neighbours now or something.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Robert Maloney played the professor. He's done very well for himself. He's been in all sorts of shows, X-Files, 100, everything you can imagine. He was even in the second season of Arrow, playing the police commissioner. And then you've got the young chap in the blue shirt. He went on to do a show. He was in The Punisher as playing a psychopath in the Punisher TV show, but he was also
yes, that's right.
And he also played. Oh God, my brain's gone haggled. The chap who Lee Harvey Oswald in the that TV series, that time travel TV series about the assassination, and the guy kept going backwards in time.
Oh yeah, the Stephen King one. That was a really great show.
Yeah, he was really very, very good as Lee Harvey Oswald. And then Pippa at the end, Philippa, she's done Howard's End for the BBC, very big series. She came over here and filmed that, and she's done lots of TV and movies, and she's developing into a very, very good actress. So thankfully that they've all gone on to bigger and better things.
You keep in touch with lots of happy memories attached to that, Paul.
Yes, as I said, the cast, the crew, the art department were wonderful, absolutely wonderful. We had,
so out of interest, sorry, Paul, carry on.
Sorry, there was just we had a few skirmishes, as you do in production when you're working and everything, and you compromise. And we had a couple of really big compromises we had to make while we were doing it. And but we managed to get it in the can and do it. And also, when you think about it, we were shooting it when over here, prior to obviously the situation we're living through now, things were really bad. Restaurants were closing all over the place here because of the recession that was hitting.
Mm-hmm.
2007.
It hadn't hit Australia while we were in our own bubble in Australia, not seeing what was happening over here. Everything was just closing. And and part of why we didn't do a second series was that Channel 10 had to, when the recession hit Australia, Channel 10 had to put themselves up for sale. And that's the only reason that there wasn't a second series made, because they didn't have the money. As simple as that. But the show in itself was a success.
The impression that I got is that people were definitely barking for more. How about you, JT? Did you follow that one?
Barking for more. Listen to him. I think Paul, that's very interesting, because it actually shows how difficult it is to make a television production in this day and age. And I think, again, it's something I've said this to Dan. In this day and age, because fans are guaranteed in a way certain shows all the time, you become a little bit lethargic. You become expectant, and it's just not the way reality hits productions these days. Interesting story.
Have we got Bob yet at all? Bob, can you hear us, Bob?
Let's blame the iPad.
Only
Bob,
just.
can you hear us?
Only just. You can hear him.
And you tell us how to join the words together.
Oh, we're getting a few words.
Getting a word.
Can you ask him if he can change over to a laptop if he's on an iPad?
What do you say, Paul?
Are you on your laptop or the iPad?
Sorry? I can't hear what you're saying.
Are you on an iPad?
Are you on the iPad or a laptop?
Hang on.
we are.
Hang on.
Technical support live for you on YouTube.
Well, this is what you get for live, isn't it?
You don't get this on Radio Free Scaro, do you? Let's be honest.
Paul, out of interest, going back to that whole story about how that 2010 series came into being. Did you at any point sort of take the idea to the BBC, coming from that initial thing of maybe it's a sort of a straight to video thing, but then Bob's saying no, let's do it as a show. Did you give the BBC an option to pick it up, or?
It was the obvious thing to do. We went to the BBC. We went to the BBC on more than one occasion, and have done since. The initial response was, "No, it's not for us. Doctor Who's dead. He'll never come back."
Well,
It just shows that the BBC always know what they're talking about, don't they?
That's not there anymore.
Same old story, Sarah.
One of the chief executives of Children's back in, I think that must have been about 2000, probably 1999 actually, thinking about it, yeah. And 98, 99. And we were then called back by someone else there who was really keen on it, and that was another department of drama. Then we went to Children's, and Children's department were up in arms, all fans, like, oh, we've got to do this, we've got to make a K9 show. And obviously we to use the the K9 from Doctor Who. Well, obviously spruced up a bit and everything. And they were really keen. We had a couple of meetings. And then they got a new chief executive, who was an American woman, who had no idea of what K9 was, or was interested in doing sci-fi. And she said, sci-fi is dead. Kids aren't into sci-fi. Kids want to see shows about other kids with the same problems, living at home, going to school, and all that sort of thing.
oh my God, that does sound like the BBC.
The BBC have always got their finger on the button, haven't they? They're there. They know the zeitgeist.
So I mean, the one thing about what JT was picking up on about finance is, one thing with the BBC is they, at one stage, probably no longer now, they were guaranteed a financial income to make shows. But and obviously the private market, the market outside of the BBC, the commercial market, which says it all, the word commercial compared to the BBC, is very different. And now with the streaming services and everything, it's opened up a whole new world. Even the BBC are seeing it themselves and getting with the plan. I mean,
finally,
they're showing a 5-part Dalek animated series starting next month.
yeah.
So it's that's.
Was that Bob? We can hear you, Bob.
We can, yes.
Yeah, better.
Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you now. Yes.
Way, we got Bob.
Yes.
We can't see you, but we can hear you.
Fabulous. Great to have you back, Bob.
It's like a carry-on here.
Surprised when you were talking about Rainbow earlier on that you didn't go into one of your voices, JT, because I've heard you do Zippy and Bungle.
Yeah, Zippy. Yeah.
So Bob,
Right. Fire away.
can you can hear us there? How did it feel, Bob, all those years later, to finally see K9 fly?
Right. K9 what?
Fly.
Hovering around.
Well, we'd always wanted him to fly from the beginning. But the first one we wrote had him just like sort of 2 inches off the floor, just going along like that, like, as if it was ground effect or something like that. But then we, of course, the script writer said we can't have that. So that was that. For flying, desire to make him fly, because he can't interact with people when he's on the floor. That's the trouble. Tom Baker used to hate kneeling down on his knees to K9 because demeaning to him, he felt. Anyway, he ended up loving K9 one way or another.
So when you look back on the creation of the character, Bob, Do you view it as a flash of inspiration, or was it born out of a necessity of the plot at the time, or was it a bit of both?
Well, we got back from heavy duty pub lunch, and had a few silly ideas, And I said, what about a dog? And Dave said, K9. I said,
Even the name came in a flash there, Simon, by the sounds of it.
Can you remember, Bob? Can you remember, Bob, at what point was it decided that K9 was going to stay on the show? Because presumably you and Dave wrote the character originally purely for the one story, for the Invisible Enemy. So can you remember at what point suddenly it was decided, okay, we're keeping him on board?
Yeah, Bob rang us up whilst I think they were still filming the episodes. And he said, we want to keep him on, and we said, thank you very much, love it.
Talk to our solicitor.
Yes, my agent, talk to my agent.
Very good. I mean, can you remember when you were first writing The Invisible Enemy? Did you have any inkling in the back of your brains, you and Bob, you and Dave, that maybe they might decide to keep him on, or was it literally just you had no idea, you had no dreams at all of K9 staying on, or had you got your eye on the bigger prize?
Absolutely no idea at all. We just did the story because we thought it was enjoyable. Because Dave loved dogs. He had a couple, and he was keen that it would be successful as a character. I mean, this is the thing. It's sort of another element to the Doctor. He had somebody who he could argue with, things like that. So anyway, yes, it was well in. I think about the third episode they were shooting, and Bob Holmes called us up and gave us the good news.
Can you remember when you first saw the realization of K9, and did it live up to your image in your minds of what K9 would look like, or did you and Dave have a completely different idea in mind for K9?
They sent us the drawings of the early one, which I think you showed earlier on.
Yeah.
The white drawings from the designer, who did a brilliant job, I think, fabulous job, and. It ended up a bit more chunky than the drawings. The drawings were kind of setter, and the real one was a bit kind of a pug compared. But we were delighted with it. But first time I thought I saw them trying to make it move. That was a bit of a shock because it would suddenly rush forward, terrible speed, and bang. But
did you kind of feel at all guilty for the fact that you'd come up with this character that just couldn't work in the studio and it was all your fault? Did you feel guilty?
Producers hated him.
People they're watching.
They had to invent some new kind of travelling mats. It's always you. It's always you.
We've got lots of lovely messages coming through in the chat here, Bob. We've got Bob, thank you so much for all you've contributed to Doctor Who and for bringing us K9 and so many wonderful stories along with Dave. And that's from Problem Being in the chat there from YouTube. Lots of goodwill here. And yes, thank you for keeping K9 in the public consciousness. Talking about the public consciousness, Paul.
Yeah.
This is where there's a new chapter beginning, isn't it, Bob and Paul? K9. Onto new adventures very, very soon. We've got a little video that you've sent along to us that we're going to play for everybody, which is the next chapter, isn't it, in K9's journey. Do you want to introduce this for us, Paul?
It's got a few chapters in it.
So do you want to say a little bit, before I play this video, do you want to say a little bit about what we're about to watch?
Given the necessity of what has happened this year with the lockdown and everything, we decided, okay, and we are very close with a company that is very, very keen to make a series, and we're hoping that that's going to happen, and we'll discuss that after we discuss the next item. So we had some movement animation done, we decided, okay, we can't physically make anything, we can't do anything, so let's write a book. So Bob's written the book, and that's what you're going to see for that.
So this is Bob's brand new K9 book. We're going to see a promo for it right now. This is the first time this has been seen anywhere, isn't it, Paul?
It is, yeah.
Absolutely. So here we go. Check this out, everybody.
How excited are we?
And there we have it. Congratulations, Bob, Paul. That's spectacular.
Thank you. So,
It's great seeing K9 whizzing around like that. He's just so cool the way he's flying around. It's brilliant. Looks great.
My boys are absolutely going to love that. I'm me, of course, obviously, but
if it actually been a novel full of its individual stories, but because it's on the written page, for people who obviously are purists that prefer the original K9, and he is in the book as well, you know, you can read whatever version of K9 that you want to the character in the book, and it's got some other fun, shall we say, guest star characters in the book as well, which I think will surprise some people.
There are some clues to that in that artwork, aren't there?
Oh, the front cover.
Yeah.
It just looks great, and I just love the design of K9. I mean, he if it's possible, he just gets cuter and cuter with every redesign.
It's a nice middle ground, isn't it?
It's great because as Paul was saying earlier on, you've got the similar sort of silhouette. He's still clearly recognisably K9, just as I say, a blinked up K9. It's just perfect. It looks great.
Well, that's the biggest compliment that people actually instantly know. I mean, fair enough, he's got the name K9 slapped either side of his shoulder pads. It'd be like Superman. You know, if you saw someone with an S on their chest, you know who he is. But no matter how the costume's designed, but anybody just seeing it even from a distance, even when we were filming in Brisbane with the Australian K9, we'd hear people chanting, "Where's Doctor Who? Where's Doctor Who?" And it's like, you know, they instantly recognise it. That's K9. You know, no matter which face he's wearing, it's like the Doctor. Whatever face they are wearing, speaking in the modern day vernacular, it's like, you know, they are recognisable as the Doctor.
I think as much as anything, it might be the red eyes, the little red eye vibe. That just to me immediately says K9. So people always say, you know, it's down to the eyes being the windows sold and all the rest of it. And I do think that there's a lot in the eyes.
Yeah, I mean, one thing with this new version is that we'll have retractable lenses behind the visor lines, so that we can have some sort of like almost like a, not emoji, but sort of like, you know, visual eye movement, eye close, and also like also underneath his I'll just turn around to it here, underneath this section here under the eye there, there's going to be like little shields that come down almost like our eyelids. So
we got a hint of that a little bit in the trailer, didn't we, Paul? Some of the graphics were pointing at that.
And also from the Australian TV series, we put K9's heads-up display on view, so that you could see what he was analysing and what the creature was and everything like that. And or if he was analysing, you know.
You robocopped him, didn't you, Paul? You robocopped.
Yes, we're going to project that as 3D holograms, as you saw in the little trailer. That they were just movement tests. So we thought, we'll use the movement test for the book trailer, and that saves a bit of money. But no, it's available for pre-order from tonight, I believe, on our k9official.com website. Plug.
We've got the banner running at the bottom there, and there'll be links to all of that in the description, as always, in the comments section. Let us know what you think, if you're excited about all of this new K9 stuff, and what you think of the video in general. Chuck us a like, won't you? Subscribe to the channel for more content just like this, more Doctor Who love, more K9 love. Yes, and share along, share to your friends, share to the kids, show them the wonder of K9 in case they haven't come across them before. Because this book, it's made up of 4 stories, isn't it? 4 brand new stories from Bob Baker here, as described on the back. And I understand, Simon, that you're going to give us a little bit of a reading of the plots of all of these, aren't you?
Shall I do that? Shall I do that now?
I think you should. Let's get them up on screen and we can hear your wonderful reading voice.
Right,
clear your throats, everybody. Settle yourselves down.
Really excites me. Let's start with the gift givers. K9 returns to New Earth 7 to find that an alien race has taken control of the planet's population of Earth colonists and AI life forms. Teaming up with a former crook and a work droid called Boxcar, I want to meet him already, K9 must use all his ingenuity to release the grip that the invaders have over the new Sev president. But how can he do this when he has never heard of or encountered the race enslaving the planet? A race calling themselves Axons.
Ooh, it's exciting.
I
want to read that story.
I love an Axon. I love an Axon also.
Love an Axon.
And on to story 2 there.
The 9 Moons race. K9 is refereeing the triannual 9 Moons race around New Sev, keeping the assortment of colourful and exotic races with their souped-up spacecraft is proving wary. And when he realises that somebody is so determined to win the race that they will stop at nothing, including murder, K9 realises what the term "hard day's night" really means.
Fabulous.
As in Hard Day's Night, it's he's been working like a dog, hasn't he?
Like a dog.
Boom, boom.
I love it.
It's great, isn't it?
How's this sounded to you so far, Sarah?
Oh, it's fabulous. I'm really excited.
Quality K9
That's a bit of an interstellar wacky races as well.
Brilliant. It reminded me as well. It made me sort of think of the Star Wars film, the first Star Wars film with the pod racing.
Yes, the pod racing. Yeah.
Who's not going to be excited by that kind of brilliant?
I'm really excited. I'm really excited by this story, Simon. Story number 3, because there's a certain monster back in this story that I've always loved. Long-term listeners, they all know.
Absolutely. So this is the Time Thief. K9 encounters a cheeky time and space travelling character, a chancer and petty thief who insists that he has met K9 before. Knowing this to be impossible, K9 is intrigued. Drax, we all know Drax, under the employ of the leader of one of the gangster gangs that thrive in New Sev's most unsavoury districts, has recently stolen over 10 million credits worth of diamonds and what he thinks is an ancient relic from the New Sev Museum. That's your Drax voice, isn't it? Unbeknown to Drax, the relic is in fact a cluster of incredibly rare eggs belonging to the mandrill species. Dun dun dun. Who are thought to be extinct. K9 has to face a gang war, apprehend the culprits, and face the fact that the mandrill eggs are beginning to hatch. Hey. Who doesn't love a mandrill?
I love the mandrill so much, Bob. JT, what do you think?
To see the mandrills back.
I'm really excited. I think these sound wonderful, and you can already picture what's going on, can't you?
You really can. There's one more gold nugget of brand new K9 action coming. Here we are.
This is the Proclaimer. Witnessing an anomaly on a planet on the outer rim of Nusev's galaxy, K9 suffers damage and lands on a world ruled by an elite force called the Status Quo. Hailed as a savior, he is looked upon to release the downtrodden cybernetic and human inhabitants from a life of poverty and oppression.
Oh,
Yes.
very good.
Oh,
K9
Freedom
hero to
fighter
the rescue
K9.
there, by the sounds of it.
Everybody's hero, K9, isn't he, Sarah?
he is. He is. He's
Have
wonderful.
we still got Bob on board? Can you still hear us, Bob?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They sound great, Bob. I want to read this book. I can't wait to read this
There he
book.
is.
Yes,
Congratulations.
They sound so much fun. They really do. We're all desperate for a bit of fun right now.
Absolutely.
That's the reason we
It's
decided
all
on
in the
this.
style of what I call my lockdown.
That's his lockdown.
To explore personal relationship side, his emotional side, and I think it really worked. Really worked. I'll leave it to you to decide that. But we've got him sort of interacting with humans.
The character is
relaxed.
he's
Kind of affirmative,
No, he's picking up.
and I was
Congratulations on the new book, Bob. It does look really exciting. Very, very charming. Just enough Doctor Who lore to keep us interested, and I'm sure the kids are going to enjoy it too when it's being read to them, or whether they can read it along themselves. Who knows? I think there's something for everybody in all of that. Is that it doesn't go on?
Yeah.
Bob. Yeah. Okay. We've got a nice big close up. Nice big close up here of K9 as you were describing. There he is, Bob.
He is cute, isn't he, Simon?
He's just adorably cute. As I say, if anything, he is more cute than the original version, and he's more dog-like as well. This thing, he looks like a dog.
Absolutely.
Those ears are adorable. He just looks so cheeky.
I love the fact in the ears there, he's got those little nods to the original with the little mesh inside.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's
these
the thing.
things. Look,
The DNA is all there. He has the DNA of K9, absolutely.
Yes.
I mean, these ears here from the original version, in the pain of my life, you can get as many models as you want, but they all fall off. No, brilliant. I mean, this is Paul. This is still K9 Mark 1 from the original, the 2010 series, isn't it?
Yeah, it's his next upgrade, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a page in the book in the preface. We've got a short story prior to the other stories, which is basically why Marius created K9, or had him created, and takes him away to the Baal Foundation. And then we've got a page that summarizes K9's life after that, up to the point of where you meet him in these stories. And these stories therefore become like a preview before the events that take place in Time Quake and what we have planned next for him.
I'm glad you've mentioned Time Quake, Paul, because we were gonna talk about this because there's been a lot of talk about Time Quake over the last few years, and there was a hell of a lot. I remember there was a hell of a lot of excitement over the fact that K9 was going to be with Omega, which of course is another one of Bob and Dave's creations, like the Mandrels, like Drax, like the Axons there. So these stories are all set before Time Quake. How's that going to work? How's it going to look?
Well, the plan is that Time Quake. I'll give you the reason why we didn't go ahead with the movie and what's going to happen with the Time Quake script now, which let's
just backtrack a little bit for the people in the chat. You announced Time Quake, the movie, didn't you? Around 2015, something like that?
I think it was about 2016 or something. And we had partners on board. We had everything ready, and then we signed with an American global merchandising company, who then advised us, and they look after some of the biggest characters in the world. they advised us, don't do a one-shot. This character's bigger than that. This character needs to have a long-running series. And so therefore, okay, we then, said, stopped with the finance being raised, because you're talking about, to make a movie, you're talking in excess of £30 million and the rest to make the epic story that Bob had written. And believe you me, it's probably one of the most epic stories from the Doctor Who universe that you could ever imagine. And with a character as omnipotent as Omega himself, it had to be done right. And of course, the doubters were all saying, how can a little robot dog face Omega? Well, Omega's in prison in a different dimension, and K9's holding all the cards. So therefore, you have to think these things through about how can he and his little band group that he leads and becomes the main character of face such a a massive character who's I would put on equal terms with Galactus and the Marvel characters that have all this power and energy that they can wield. So the idea was that we had him coming across dimensions and where he was vulnerable, and so the plan now is that the Time Quake script will be adapted to be episodes 1 and 2 of what we plan next.
Wow.
Of a new series.
Of a new series.
Series, yeah.
And I'm guessing at this stage we can't talk about who might be in talks to do the series or anything like that. I'm guessing it's just too early stages.
All we can say is that it'll be made here in the UK.
Yes.
I think a lot of people. I think there's going to be a lot of people clapping that one, Paul.
Yeah, well, I'll certainly be clapping when we're out of this lockdown and we can carry on with negotiating.
Yeah. So technically, the book that we've just shown there, it's like a prequel, right? Okay.
Yeah, prelude.
It's a taster.
It's a taster, but it doesn't feature the main characters that K9 will be associated with, but it's in that universe. It's on that planet. Yeah, keep K9 British somewhat.
Definitely.
He always will be British. He has that Britishness about him anyway.
And you're still developing him, aren't you? Because we've got some more artwork that you've let us have. This hasn't been seen anywhere either, has it? This is K9 and his new collars there.
Brilliant.
Oh.
To take on Omega or whoever else may try and get in K9's way.
Yeah, well, the thing is, originally when we did some designs nearly 20 years ago now, when Bob and I got together, because we've been working together for 22 years with K9 now. It's and other projects. We've got quite a few projects in development on our production company. But with K9, we did these in the early days that he could have this sort of ability to morph from his living metal into collars. If you notice, I've even used the colour schemes from Thunderbirds there. You've got the heavy artillery in green.
I love it.
I noticed.
I had wondered about that, Paul. I had wondered.
I want them all. We need toys made. I want them all.
Well, like I said, with the signing with this large merchandising company, this is exactly the sort of thing that they wanted to see, and that's what you have to do in this day and age. You can't survive on a handful of characters and a sonic screwdriver to actually bring some income commercially in from your production. You've got to look at the bigger picture, as the Marvel universe has done, as DC has done, and the Transformers, and even Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Everything's got other accessories rather than just the main characters.
Yeah.
Have we still got Bob? Can you still hear us, Bob?
Oh,
Have we still got Bob? Are you there?
I can see a ceiling, I think.
It's a lovely ceiling, though. It's
The
gorgeous.
ceilings go. Oh, he's gone.
Oh, okay.
He's popped off again. Yes.
Hopefully he'll come back.
So,
He has got a very bad connection down in Bristol.
so how many episodes do you envisage this brand new series of K9 running to? Has that been talked about, or is it still up in the air?
It's up in the air, but we're looking at perhaps initially 10, 13, so it's not something like, I mean, you can do a series with 6 episodes now.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of streaming services, etc., where people can binge watch.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just to double check, Paul, so this is nothing to do with the BBC at all. This isn't a BBC production, it's its own thing.
It's our own thing. It's nothing to do with the BBC.
That might not be a bad thing right now with the state of the BBC. Oh, there you go.
Paul, do you still have to go to the BBC and basically ask permission, or because does Bob own enough rights in the character that you can just do your own thing with it?
We have to always let them know. Part of our agreement is that we don't step over the line and make him look like the original.
Right.
And we had an agreement. We have an agreement with it. It's called a quick claim that we have on all the characters that Bob and Dave created, like Omega. Is that we don't want the same designs. It's derivative, or it's similar to, and it's moved on from the original design, and it's updated, basically. So we do it that way, and we deal with their intellectual property lawyer that they have. So and we get on very well with them, and there is no problem. I mean, obviously we offer them things, and they go through a state of flux when they're changing, production leads and things like that. So therefore, they know, they're aware of what we're doing. And where there was a lot of publicity, I think about 2 years now, even Zoe Ball picked up on it, that there was going to be a new K9 series and everything like that. They called us in for a meeting to discuss the meeting. So we went and discussed it with them and told them what they were doing. So, but this is obviously their commercial wing and everything.
Yeah. Hi, Bob.
We've got Bob back.
Hello.
Hello.
I see you now.
Giving up the ghost. My laptop giving up the ghost.
Oh, Bob. Well, I was just going to ask you, are you just amazed that here we are all these years later and we're A, still talking about K9, and B, we're all just so excited about K9? Does that just amaze you?
Yes, it does, and I'm delighted by it as well. I mean, I've got a couple of nephews who play K9, which is quite interesting to
Yes.
I thought the younger generation are really enjoying it, so well, carry on.
Yeah.
Do you think, are you bored of the character, or does he still excite you?
No. I've spent from January to August writing these stories, and they're really liberating. I really enjoyed it. I've been exposing a different side to K9.
And it's wonderful to hear that the Axons and the Mandrills are back. I think we can all.
Yes.
The Axons is one of my earliest memories. Is the Claws of Axos. So I'm particularly pleased to hear that the Axons are back. What made you? Was that a flash of inspiration to think I'm going to bring the Axons and the Mandrills of all things back? What made you do that?
Well, I mean, they're our characters. They're Dave and my characters, so we can use them without a lot of trouble from the BBC.
Well, people in the chat have certainly got a few opinions about that as well.
Yes.
Yes, I think a lot of people are very happy to see that K9's back in Britain, Bob, and that you're going to push ahead with this show as best you can without the BBC.
Yes, quite.
Is it nice, Bob? Is it nice, Bob, to be in effect sort of liberated from, back in the day when you were obviously writing the show for the BBC, you were very constrained by the production team, by the script editor, the producer of what they wanted, and now it's basically it's up to you. You've got carte blanche to do whatever you want. Is that very liberating, or did you maybe prefer being given the discipline that they might give you? You've got to do this, this, and this in the script.
Well, we didn't actually get that far, but I could see it coming. The rope was coming out to bind your ankles together, and I could see it being led by them rather than led by myself and Paul and our people that are involved. But I mean, they were, they wanted to do it, and then suddenly somebody at the top decided not. There we go.
Yeah.
It's the way it goes, isn't it?
Change of the wind, change of the wind. I love the Brits, how the Brits say Bob. Bob, says Vanessa Law. She likes the name Bob, I think. Got a few comments here in the chat. Yeah.
I mean, it's great news, Paul and Bob, that, a new series for K9 is going to be made in Britain. Because how brilliant is that to fly the flag right now? We've got Brexit coming, we've got the whole COVID-19 coming. I mean, that's going to hopefully really generate an interest in our own industry, which really needs it right now. So congratulations. That's great news.
Well, like I said, it's still in negotiation, and obviously nothing's negotiated with people yet, finalised with people yet, until obviously we can actually meet people face to face again, and plan ahead to actually get something in pre-production and everything. But I mean, the fact of it is that K9 is loved, and a lot of people, as you know yourselves, working in the industry itself, that there is an affection for the character, and also there is this sort of nostalgia wave that goes around at the moment as well. I mean, that things like Thunderbirds that came back did reasonably well. The purists weren't 100% into it, but it found a new audience.
I loved it.
Oh, really? Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Right. And it's the ideal template for something like K9. There's no reason why it can't work just as well. Everything that's been done on Thunderbirds, I'm sure it can translate. We've just seen that first image with all the colours. I love all that stuff. We're going to go over to the chat now and see what's going on there, because people have been talking the entire time. See if anybody's got any questions here.
Paul's just wanted to say something.
Okay.
Yeah, so I also say that there's a company called Cutaway Comics.
Yes.
By Gareth Kavanagh.
No, Gareth.
Here in Manchester, and he's launched a series written by Eric Saywood called Lytton, based on his Lytton character.
Yeah.
The next series he's launching is an Omega series, which obviously Bob's given permission to use the character. And there's a backup script in that. Now, the Omega series is being illustrated by John Ridgway.
Ooh.
Oh, wow. Brilliant.
The strip is being illustrated by a chap called Martin Garrity.
Yep.
Yeah.
Both from the magazine.
It's beautiful. The pages that we've seen so far are beautiful. The scripts are great, and that comes out in the new year. Our book is available for pre-order, and if we can get the printer to not furlough their staff any further, we'll have the book before Christmas, we hope. So we're excited to order the book now, because the first 100 or so that we get in pre-orders, Bob's going to autograph the copies.
Oh, lovely.
Wow.
So
You over through the website, yeah?
Unmissable offer. Yes, we've got a banner. We've got the website here. Where's that? Yes, we have the banner there, and the links will be in the description to that. You can go and get yourself a copy. Maybe snag one of these autographed copies there from our Bob there. Where are we? Yes, spectacular stuff. Let's see what everybody else is saying, because there's been so much in the chat. And where are we? People asking about Oh, people mentioned the Claws of Axos here. Claws of Axos is a great story.
Brilliant
I love the
story.
Claws of Axos
It
too.
is, and I just want to go while we're on Claws of Axos, Bob. I just want to ask you about this because I mean, Claws of Axos is infamous, as you and Dave had this brilliant idea of a gigantic skull spaceship landing in the middle of Hyde Park, and I still want to see that. I want to see that. They scotched it in the show. But one of these days, in the new K9 series, why not bring back the idea of a gigantic skull spaceship landing in Hyde Park?
There's a direct request from Simon.
Yes.
I want to see it.
We have.
Do you remember doing that, Bob?
Do better than that.
You do that. Do it better than that
Oh, yeah.
now. That's old. It's old news, Bob. Old news, isn't it?
Dick said about it as well.
You must feel liberated now, Bob, that you can just go out and do stuff that back in the day they couldn't afford to do it. You can do it now, can't you?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, but can do even more and better besides, as they say.
Can't wait.
Just imagine. Are there any other major characters concepts that Bob owns the rights to? So who wants to give a quick list there of all the things you've created, Bob? We've got the Mandrels, we've got the Axons.
Oh dear.
No.
We've got
Omega, the Black Guardian.
No, not Black Guardian. No. But definitely Omega, Mandrels, Drax, the Axons.
Yeah.
The mutants, the mutts from the mutants.
Yes.
Right, yeah. And of course, Bob and Dave did write the Sontaran experiment, although they don't own the rights to the Sontaran, but that's a great two-parter there. That's a great story. If you haven't seen the Sontaran experiment, get it on.
Genuinely, these are some of my very favourite stories. They're so audacious, Bob, your storytelling. The things that you try to do, that you tasked them to do on that budget back in the 70s, they must have been cursing your name, but it's inspirational, really.
Yeah, and they still hold up as well. Like the Axons absolutely terrified
The Axons
me.
brilliant. You're right, Sarah. The Axons still. I mean, seriously, you could bring those back today.
Yeah, well, do you know that? Well, they are obviously, they're going to bring them back, but do you know that humanoid form with those blank eyes? Do you remember those?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Scary stuff. We've got you, Bob. You're back.
Yeah.
Freaks you out. We've got a question here. Will the K9 book be available worldwide on Amazon?
It's actually, but what we're planning to do is, as I said, it's the pre-order first. It's exclusive on our website, and mainly because of the lockdown situation and everything like that. We want to handle it there. We don't want to hand it over to Amazon just yet. It won't be on Amazon much before spring next year. Best to pre-order a copy.
Great. We've got Gareth Kavanagh here in the chat.
Gareth, we just
love that
Hello,
image
Gareth.
of the store. Very Jean-Michel Jarre. Gareth.
It is very Jean-Michel Jarre. That's why I want to see it. Come on, Bob. I'm relying on you. I want to see this
Gareth.
park.
Gareth, come on to a later show. We'd love to talk to you about Cutaway Comics. Come and chat to us here on Type 40 anytime. What else have we got? Wasn't the mutants about the partition of India, Bob? Do you remember that?
Come on, Bob. Have we still got you?
You might have to repeat it again.
Wasn't the mutants about the partition of India, Bob?
Oh.
Sounds like he's typing.
Yes, I hear it. Clicking sound. Vanessa's just bought the book. She hopes she can get it signed. There you go.
Brilliant.
Well done,
Thank you,
Vanessa.
Vanessa.
You've beaten us to it.
And here's a question to both Paul and Bob. Can K9 time travel without a TARDIS?
There's a character in the plant who is integrally a holographic pilot of a time-space vehicle. But the vehicle is actually a piece of armature that someone can wear. So therefore, space.
Oh, we've got Bob again. We've got Bob.
What's he saying?
Bob says no.
There will be a bit of time travel. Bob, did you hear that question from the chat earlier?
The answer is no.
The answer's no.
There you go.
There you
Bob
go.
has spoken.